I probably owe my existence today to a small group of persons, not the least of which is a former Penn student named David C. Jesnowski. He was another targeted individual who lived in my neighborhood. My lucky encounter with David came about a week after the harassment started. I was beginning to fall apart. The constant noise really does cause someone to either become agitated and or commit suicide. While waiting on a corner in the neighborhood to catch the trolley into town, a jet passed overhead at a low altitude. As I was looking up, a man on a bicycle was passing by. He was a disheveled man with long white hair. When he noticed me looking at the aircraft, he slowed his bike right in front of me. "Do you know what's going on?" I asked. I forget what his exact words were, but he said something about a Penn student taking out ads in the school's daily newspaper, which was called the Daily Pennsylvanian, and he suggested that I read them. As soon as I had the time to do so, I went to Penn's library and asked where I could find past issues of the Daily Pennsylvanian. The librarian referred me to the newspaper's offices. I walked less than a block to the newspaper's offices. I asked where I could find past issues. Two young men pointed toward a counter where the past issues were bound together. The people in the office eyed me a little bit, but they left me alone to leaf through the past issues. The first couple of issues were nothing special. Then I came upon an odd classified ad. The first ad was a comment in the corner of a page. It didn't make much sense standing alone, but it caught my eye because it mentioned harassment and it was signed by a student. I kept leafing through the pages of past issues. Now and then I would discover another ad. All the ads mentioned harassment of some kind and the distress that it was causing the author. Then I came upon a couple of full quarter or half-page ads. I remember thinking that these ads were costing somebody a lot of money. I also thought the ads probably looked a little crazy to outsiders. Then I came across a two-page classified ad that really made me freeze. I started to read it, and my fear escalated as the author described his experiences in Philadelphia and also when he left town to visit people. He also described harassment against anyone who had anything to do with him, including his family and friends. And this had been happening over a period of months. Reading this and his ads, my own fear grew exponentially. After about an hour, I felt that I was beginning to overstay my welcome in the newspaper office, so I took a picture or I photocopied one or two of the articles. Although I was in extreme fear, I didn't mention what was happening to friends or family right away. That's because, according to what David said, they would be harassed too, and I wanted to think of a way to minimize that. But yet, there was extreme fear, understanding that it would not stop, even if I took out a full-page ad in the newspaper. No matter what happened, it was clear that help was not going to be on its way. In his ads, David Jesnowski said that it happened to him after he filed a police complaint. He also said that he visited the FBI office in Philadelphia to no avail. Well, I remembered that I too had filed a police complaint. So both David and I shared the experience of a police harassment and filing a police complaint. So then, naturally, our assumption back then was that the police had something to do with it. However, we had no direct proof the police were involved. One nagging concern in the back of my head was that it might be somebody else. This was because of my knowledge about a neighborhood fellow called Richard Cannigas. See, Richard was a neighborhood Quaker activist who swore against all the evidence to the contrary that he was being harassed by a cult known as the Moonies. And I remembered that Richard, too, had sent letters to the editor that were printed in the newspaper. So, was the source of the harassment the Philadelphia police or something else? Well, the easiest way to find out might be to talk to this fella, David Jesnowski, and he put his address in one of his ads. So I walked over to his condo or apartment. I stopped at the front desk and asked if a David Jesnowski lived there. The receptionist at the front desk said yes. So I contacted David and I made an appointment to see him. Although I forget how I made the appointment, I remember that I was terrified the morning of the appointment. Would I be rubbed out on the way? Would this guy, David Jesnowski, rub me out? So just to be sure, I shared my concern with one very close friend. I reached David's condo and called at the desk, and he invited me into his apartment. We compared notes, and our harassment experience matched exactly. David also seemed to be a normal individual with a nice apartment and a full-time job. We guessed at the time that the harassment had been going on for some time before it involved us, and that it involved other individuals. But neither of us had any idea who was behind it. Well, after about a 2-hour meeting comparing notes, we parted. Both David and I promised to get back in touch if either of us got new information on what was going on. Yet, aside from a random encounter in Love Park in Philadelphia one day, we never saw each other again. However, I saw that gray-haired man who passed me on the bike several times since then. I guessed that he lived in West Philadelphia because I saw him on the trolley or on the streets there. He always seemed to look distressed and unkempt, and I have no direct evidence, but I suspect that he might have been a target too. As for him, if I ever get new information, I'll update this video. As for David Jesenowski, I did a search and he might be in Indianapolis, but I'm not sure. The last I heard, Richard Kanagas, the man who complained about being harassed by Moonies, was living on the street or in West Philadelphia. And I think I may have seen him once roaming the streets when I was visiting Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. If anyone viewing this video has information to help me locate any of these individuals, please let me know in the comments below, and thank you in advance.